and the Conservative caucus are united.
Yeah.
We believe that Canada needs a pipeline to the Pacific and that we need to override the discriminatory anti-Canada ban on shipping Canadian energy overseas. We need this pipeline because it will make for stronger take-home pay, it will make for affordable living, and it will make for a sovereign, self-reliant economy. Let's talk for a moment about the incredible benefits that such a pipeline would bring. It would allow us to move $30 billion a year of Canadian energy overseas to the 2.5 billion Asian customers that would then pay world prices for it. $30 billion would be the single biggest increase in overseas exports that any decision by this country could make. To put this into perspective, recently I pointed out that the Prime Minister, after running on the promise that we were in an existential crisis and needed to do the unimaginable at speeds not seen in generations, had not succeeded in removing a single foreign tariff on Canadian exports despite countless months of world travel. He snapped back that there's been a trade deal with Indonesia. Well, forget the fact that it was the previous Prime Minister that negotiated that, something the current one has a bad habit of doing, is taking credit for things he did not do. But by the government's own projections, if that trade deal were to be as good as they promised, it would add $400 million to our exports. The pipeline to the Pacific would add 75 times more to Canada's exports overseas than the only agreement that the Prime Minister likes to brag about. So there is literally not a single trade deal you could sign, not a single government project you could fund that would come anywhere close to opening up the $30 billion of overseas non-US exports that this single project would enable. It would mean thousands of extra jobs for Canadians in Western Canada, but also potentially in Central Canada, who might be the ones supplying the steel for this patriotic pipeline. It would mean the communities on the route would have new life as workers would be filling restaurants with their paychecks. Local vendors would be able to sell more clothing, more housing supplies, and other goods to enable and rejuvenate communities all across the north part of Alberta and British Columbia, originating as it would be from Hardisty, Alberta, in my wonderful riding. The best people in the world would therefore benefit from this incredible project. And I add, Madam Speaker, that it not only would it give paychecks, it would bring tax revenues that would allow us to fund more schools, hospitals, better policing, and increase social services, not through higher taxes, as the Liberals so often favor, but rather through a booming economy. Furthermore, when you export more Canadian goods abroad, you force other countries to buy Canadian dollars. That raises the dollar and therefore the purchasing power of our people. The cost of goods that are internationally priced become more affordable. More affordable food, fuel, and inputs to build housing. A stronger dollar means in a more affordable Canada, and that is our ultimate purpose. The biggest problem in Canada today is people cannot afford to live after Liberals doubled housing costs, doubled the cost at the grocery store, doubled lineups at food banks, and doubled our national debt. One way to make life more affordable is to have a strong Canadian dollar that buys more food, fuel, and housing. All of these incredible benefits would be a no-brainer, and we shouldn't even have to debate it. In fact, Madam Speaker, we wouldn't have to debate it if the previous Conservative government's decision to approve the Northern Gateway pipeline to the Pacific had been allowed to go ahead. But in a November of 2016 cabinet decision, this Liberal government killed the Northern Gateway pipeline. The current Prime Minister, who was not in the cabinet at the time, went on to testify at the Industry Committee that he agreed with killing the Northern Gateway pipeline. The current government continues to have a tanker ban that blocks shipping Canadian oil off the northwest coast of BC while allowing American tankers to move oil between Alaska and the U.S. West Coast. So apparently it's safe when the Americans transport oil through those same waters, but not when Canadians do it. Clearly an act by this government of economic self-harm, of discriminating against Canadians. Now, the Prime Minister suddenly claimed that he'd reversed himself. He signed an MOU. Now, to believe that he is actually committed to the MOU, you have to believe that he now says he was wrong about everything he wrote and that the Liberal government did in the preceding 10 years. That he was wrong about the emissions cap, wrong about the electricity regulations, wrong about shipping oil through a pipeline from Alberta to the Pacific, and wrong about the tanker ban. And he was wrong about all of those things, but you'd have to believe that he has accepted that wrong. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's give him a chance to come in the House of Commons and vote in favor of what he promised. So Conservatives brought forward a good faith motion just to make sure that Liberals meant what they said, to get them all in the House of Commons to vote on whether they want a pipeline to the Pacific and whether they're prepared to open up our waters to shipping energy overseas. Now, the Liberals went dead quiet. I expected them to enthusiastically applaud this gesture of goodwill. They went dead quiet over the weekend, telling reporters on background they had no idea how they were going to vote on their own MOU proposal for a pipeline and an adjustment to the oil tanker moratorium. I even used wording right out of the Prime Minister's MOU to make it easy for him. But it still wasn't easy enough. As we know with Liberals, they often start by making promises, and then they go to making excuses. So they've now been generating a whole lot of excuses about why they have to vote against the wording in their own MOU. Let's go through some of the excuses. That it didn't mention that they want to accompany the pipeline with a carbon capture project. They claimed that it didn't go far enough in spelling out Indigenous engagement and ownership. They claimed that it didn't clearly lay out the plan to engage with British Columbia. Now, forget for a second the obvious fact that if the Liberals are telling the truth when they say they support the whole MOU, then they should be prepared to vote for any part of the MOU. After all, it's their MOU. So that obvious contradiction aside, we know the Liberals have made these excuses. And so, Madam Speaker, I'm going to help brush away those excuses for them. We're going to amend our own motion in order to include the things that Liberals claim we left out. So we are going to amend the motion in favor so that it will support green lighting, carbon capture and storage, green lighting Indigenous ownership in the project, and engaging with British Columbia. And we are going to, in the spirit of good faith, if we are removing all the Liberal excuses, because we know what the Prime Minister's plan is. He wants to pretend that he supports a pipeline like the majority of Canadians just long enough to get through the next election, while he quietly whispers to his Keep It in the Ground caucus, "It will never happen. Don't worry. Just hang tight with me and be quiet. We'll kill it after the election." To make sure that he can't play that duplicitous game, we're going to give him this amendment. And I move the following amendment, Madam Speaker, that the motion be amended by inserting the word including the word, that the motion be amended by inserting after the word including the word I, and by adding after the words Indigenous people the following. 2, green lighting the world's largest carbon capture, utilization and storage CCUS project for the purpose of making Alberta oil among the lowest carbon intensity produced barrels of oil in the world. 3, providing meaningful opportunity for Indigenous rights holders to participate in consultation processes and economic opportunities through Indigenous ownership, partnerships and benefits. 4, engaging with British Columbia immediately in a trilateral discussion on the pipeline project and during the potential development and construction of the bitumen pipeline referred to in the MOU, and to further the economic interests of BC related to their own projects of interest that involve the province of Alberta, including the interties and Canada working with BC on other projects of national interest in their jurisdiction. Madam Speaker, this amendment is so moved, and it is seconded by the member for Regina Capel. Thank you.